The town of Nara sat between slow hills and a tired river, the kind of place where mornings arrived quietly and evenings folded in airily. Dust clung to the road, and the same shops opened their shutters each day as if time itself had agreed to move gently here. In a small house at the edge of town lived Oriv, his mother Mira, and his grandfather Dodiji, whose eyes carried the patience of many seasons. Oriv was 16 and full of waiting. He waited to grow taller, to grow braver, to grow important. Each morning he helped his mother sweep the front step, then walked to school with his head bent slightly forward, as if the future was something heavy he carried just out of sight. He loved to sketch, filling the corners of his notebooks with bridges, machines, and rooms that opened into light. But whenever he thought of sharing his drawings or building anything real, a familiar voice rose inside him. Later. When I'm older. When I know more. Mira noticed this waiting. She saw it in how he paused before answering questions, how he stopped his pencil midline and erased carefully. She worked long hours stitching clothes for neighbors, her fingers moving with practiced certainty. At night, she would hum softly while folding finished work, the tune steady and unafraid. Oriv watched her and wondered how someone learned to be so sure. Dodiji spent his days on the veranda, mending old tools that no one asked him to fix anymore. He cleaned rust from blades, straightened bent nails, and oiled hinges until they sighed instead of groaned. He spoke little, but when he did, his words landed like stones placed carefully to cross a stream. One afternoon, a storm gathered without warning. The sky darkened early, and the river swelled, pressing against its banks. Rain struck the roofs hard, and the power flickered out. Oriv sat by the window, sketchbook closed, watching the water creep closer to the road. He felt the familiar knot of worry tighten. He had always told himself he would act when he was ready, when he felt stronger. But readiness felt far away. A knot cut through the rain. It was Lila, their neighbor, soaked and breathless. Her voice shook as she explained that the small footbridge near the fields had shifted. If it gave way, the water would flood the lower houses by morning. People were gathering, but no one knew how to brace it in the dark. Mira didn't hesitate. She grabbed a shawl and stepped into the rain. Dodiji rose slowly, taking his old toolkit. Oriv stood frozen, the storm roaring in his ears. He wanted to help, but fear wrapped around his chest. He told himself what he always did. Others are better at this. I'll help later. Outside, lanterns bobbed like nervous fireflies. The bridge groaned under the river's pressure. Men argued about angles and ropes. Time slid past, thick and heavy. Oriv lingered at the edge, rain soaking his shirt, heart pounding. He remembered the bridges he drew, how he always added extra supports, how he loved imagining weight moving safely across his lines. Dodiji caught his eye through the rain. He didn't call out. He simply nodded toward the bridge, then placed a plank into Oriv's hands. The wood was rough, solid, real. In that moment, the waiting inside Oriv cracked. He stepped forward. He didn't speak loudly. He pointed, traced lines in the air, showed where a brace could catch the current instead of fighting it. His voice trembled at first, then steadied as people listened. Together they wedged planks, tied ropes, and anchored the structure. The river pushed and hissed, but the bridge held. When the rain finally softened, relief spread through the crowd like warmth. Back home, soaked and exhausted, Oriv sat quietly while Mira poured tea. Dodiji dried his tools, hands calm. The house felt different, as if the walls had shifted a little to make space. Days passed. The storm became a story told with smiles. Oriv returned to school, but something inside him no longer waited so patiently. He began staying after class to help fix broken desks. He showed his sketches to a teacher, then to a friend. He built small things from scraps, shelves, a stool, a model bridge that sat proudly by the window. Not every attempt worked. Wood split, nails bent, doubt returned, whispering its old promises of later. But now Oriv recognized the sound. He answered it by picking up his tools again. One evening, as the sun dipped low and painted the hills amber, Oriv sat with Dodiji on the veranda. The old man handed him a hinge that gleamed softly. "Rust grows where things don't move," Dodiji said. So does Faye. Oriv nodded, understanding settling in his chest. Growth wasn't a door that opened one day. It was a step taken today, then another tomorrow, even when the ground felt unsure. From that day on, Oriv still dreamed of the future, but he stopped waiting for it to arrive. He learned to act with what he had, where he was, trusting that movement itself was a kind of courage. And in the quiet town of Nara, time seemed to notice, moving just a little more brightly with him.